Good morning. This morning I'm going to continue talking about Genjokoan. I think this is the 10th lecture. So if you are interested in the earlier lectures, they're all on the website as audio files on our website, Ocean Gate Zen Center. So today, let me read the section I'm going to talk about. Again, this is Dogen Zenji's Genjokoan from the Shobogenzo. Although its light is wide and great, the moon is reflected even in a puddle an inch wide. The whole moon and the entire sky are reflected in dewdrops on the grass, or even one drop of water. The next sentence is, enlightenment does not divide you, just as the moon does not break the water, which I talked about in the previous lecture. And then picking up on this lecture, you cannot hinder enlightenment, just as a drop of water does not break the moon in the sky. The depth of the drop is the height of the moon. Each reflection, however long or short its duration, manifests the vastness of the dewdrop and realizes the limitlessness of the moon in the sky. Okay, so what is Dogen talking about here? He's talking about the moon's radiance, which is komyo. Radiance is komyo in Japanese. And Dogen has written a complete chapter on radiance. So komyo, the radiant light of suchness. So that means that it is always presencing in and as us and in and as all being are beings. So essentially, this radiant light is reality itself. And our delusion cannot change that or defile that. That's why Dogen says, you cannot hinder enlightenment just as a drop of water does not hinder the moon in the sky. Although this is true, it does mean it still doesn't let us off the hook about practicing. We have to practice, we have to make an effort. We can't ignore morality, and we have to dedicate ourselves to a life of benefiting others. So this teaching about the moon and about not hindering enlightenment, our delusion does not hinder enlightenment, is not a nihilistic teaching. Basically, the point of the teaching is that you can't taint realization or reality suchness through your missteps and your delusion. So I think we're encouraged by knowing this, and the knowing that if we try, if we practice, we pay attention, that we can transform our own delusion and suffering. That this reality, this moon's light, is right here. It is not separate from us. So it's just a matter of turning our mind at any given time towards this moonlight, if you will, or reality, or suchness. So this delusion, though, is a problem, and it causes suffering to ourselves and others. But delusion does not destroy reality's function, and it's not a problem for reality itself. So, like rain or the moon's light, reality is doing what it is doing, and the rules of its basic nature don't change. So in Buddhism, these kind of basic rules are that everything is interconnected and causal and impermanent, and that also includes the self. So this is a way that we describe the nature of everything's functioning. And out of that comes compassion because of the interconnection. When we see that interconnection, we see the sameness that we share. Compassion and empathy arises from that. And out of that compassion and empathy comes skillful means. So our basic nature is the same as the nature of reality. The full round moon is reflected in just a tiny drop of water. And the size of what the moon is being reflected in doesn't matter. So it's fully reflected in the ocean, it's fully reflected in a lake, a glass of water, or a dewdrop. And we know this. We know that the moon, this vast object in the sky, is reflected in the tiniest thing, like a dewdrop. In the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha said this also about rain, and he used it as a metaphor for the Dharma. He said, all plants, by the rain, are fertilized and abundantly enriched. The dry ground is all soaked. From the one water which issued from the cloud, plants, trees, thickets, forests, according to their need, receive moisture. All the trees, each according to its size, grow and develop. So this is what we call the Dharma rain. It's also the moon's light shining equally on everything. So no matter how small our action, our field of being, reality is there, completely and fully manifesting. It's just like this Dharma rain of sweet dew that falls equally on everything, nourishing everything equally. Each of our lives is important. Each of our actions matter. And I think, we know this. We have proof of this. We know that how other people treat us makes a huge difference to us. We know that all the interactions that we're engaged in make a difference to us, and so they make a difference to other people as well. So the small kindnesses that we engage in, the skillful means that we engage in, the work that we do. I cannot think of anyone who's engaged in work that isn't helping on some way. So even if you're in a factory making widgets and doing the same thing over and over and over again, that widget fits into some larger structure, some larger need that is being fulfilled. So our work is important, our actions are important. Just the littlest things. We are the little ephemeral dewdrop in which the moon is completely reflected. So this is what Dogen means when he writes, the moon is reflected in a puddle an inch wide, or dewdrops on the grass on one drop of water. The whole totality of reality itself is reflected in the smallest thing. You are the whole totality of reality. A dewdrop is the whole totality of reality. And so our teaching is that because we are already that, when we practice, we manifest that and bring it forward. But Dogen's really clear about the fact that if we want Buddha nature to come forward, if we want this suchness, this moon, to come forward, we must make effort. Because although it is reality itself cannot be manifest except through our actions. So the totality of reality is embodied in the tiniest of things, and nothing is left out. The totality of reality is manifest in its entirety in a second of time, or in an eon. So no matter how large or small the being, no matter long or short the time, each thing that you can name, and things that you cannot name, include this. Dogen said earlier, you can, part of what you understand is apparent to you, and part of what you understand or don't understand is not apparent to you, although I would say that I think intuitively we understand it. I think intuitively we understand that these teachings are true, and that we understand that they are altruistic and helpful. So just like the Dharma rain, the moon's light shines equally on everything. No matter how small our actions, our field of being, reality is there fully manifesting. So I think this is really good news for us. We are already the full moon. We are already capable of being nourished fully by the Dharma rain of sweet dew, and that this Dharma rain is continuing to come down endlessly. Even though we may not be able to see it, this faith in this essential working. As Dogen says, the world, in Uji says the world, world's the world. In Gyoji Continuous Practice, he talks about how the moon and the stars, the bodhisattvas, the Buddhas, everything is continuously practicing making this world. Everything is nourishing us like the Dharma rain. So we are the dewdrop that completely reflects the totality of reality in our life, in all of our actions, no matter how small. Again in Kommyo, Radiant Light, Dogen wrote, people have been carrying the radiant light within and encountering it all the time, yet they do not clarify the shape and function of radiant light. So he's saying, although we are reality itself, we are this radiant light itself, and we encounter it all the time because it is us and we are it, as it is everything else simultaneously. So we're encountering it all the time, moment after moment after moment after moment, and yet we don't clarify the shape of that and the function of that. We don't clarify what this is. We don't understand the manifestation of this. I would say that this clarification is our understanding of practice. This clarification comes through the effort that we make by doing our practice moment after moment, whether it's being reflected in the smallest of actions that we're engaged in. So this is how we clarify. We clarify it by actually engaging with it. We don't clarify it. We may have an idea of what this is intellectually, but the way that we actually inhabit, ingest, if you will, embody and clarify this is by actually working with it. And that, in turn, is how it becomes manifest. So this is our practice. This is our mandate. This is our vow as bodhisattva practitioners. As soon as we realize this, we can turn towards what is already manifest. As soon as we realize this, we have an idea about, a glimmer about, a way of talking about the nature of our experience that allows us to see into and to clarify what's going on. In the past, we haven't been able to see it. And now we're being asked or being given the opportunity to engage in practices that allows us to see this full radiance, allows us to understand that the Dharma is manifesting itself as this sweet dew, as this equality rain, this Dharma rain. So we may not have seen the equality of the Dharma rain, and yet each of us is receiving nourishment from this. We may not have seen the quality of the moon's light, or we may not understand reality's altruistic and egalitarian nature as ourselves, as others. Yet, once we begin to look for this, once we have a way of thinking about this, once we have a way of turning our lives towards this, we realize that this life is the moon's radiance, or the Dharma rain. And we can drink the Dharma rain. We can benefit and bask in the moon's light. And although we're doing that, it probably won't make all bad things go away, but it will change your response and your view of suffering. It will change your personal understanding and the nature of your suffering, and it will actually transform your ability to be able to respond to the suffering of others. Whenever we do morning service at Ocean Gate, several times a week, we chant another part of the Lotus Sutra. It's called the Universal Gateway, from chapter 25 about Avalokiteshvara. And this is the part here that I want to quote. The precepts of compassion roar like thunder. The kind heart is wondrous as great clouds, pouring down the Dharma rain of sweet dew, quenching all flames of troubling passion. So this is a very poetic way in the Lotus Sutra to express the idea that the Dharma is always present. It's never not present. So let me read this to you again. Although most of you who come to service, you know this by heart. The precepts, the morals, comes from this interconnected. The guidelines of how we conduct ourselves, the guidelines of how we bring forth the Dharma, the precepts of compassion roar like thunder. This kind heart of compassion, this kind heart practicing precepts is wondrous. This is a wondrous activity. This is the activity of the radiant light of Komyo. This is the Dharma rain. Wondrous as these great clouds that come forth to bring the rain, pouring down the Dharma rain of sweet dew, quenching, putting out. Nirvana means to put out the flame, putting out all these flames of troubling passion, all these flames of the suffering that we go through. And again, this is not a promise that you will never suffer. This is not a promise that you will never feel pain, because it is in the nature of human beings to experience suffering. It is in our bodies that we will experience pain. But what it is saying is that this faith in this Dharma, in this rain, this practice, this thing that we're engaged in, these efforts that we are making will transform our suffering. And through the transformation of our suffering, we will have a different experience. And that experience will not be as painful. We will change the way that we see the nature of what it is to be a human being. So the Dharma is always present. It is never not present. It is weather. It is like the weather. It is elemental. This compassion, these precepts that guide us, are always present. The world itself is engaged in this altruistic practice of functioning together. The air we breathe, the food we eat, all of the things that we need to sustain us. And so this earth, this elemental sense of reality, is always present. In fact, reality is so loud, it's like thunder, and yet we don't hear it. It's so loud, and we cannot hear it. It's so loud, and we burn the rainforest. It's so loud, and we keep throwing away plastic bottles into landfills. This, too, is this roaring thunder of compassion. But we don't hear it. We're deaf to it. So often it takes deep suffering for us to see and hear the Dharma sound and be nourished by this kind heart. I think as human beings, we're starting to get into that realm of the deep suffering of realizing how our delusion has created a real problem that's coming back to hit us. But as individuals too, our own karma, which by the way is not blame. Delusion is not about blame. Human beings have been doing this for as long as we've been around on this earth, but we didn't realize it was a problem. That's the same thing for all of us who do things that are unskillful. We say the wrong thing. We drive like maniacs. I don't know what it is. Each one of us has our own problems, our own karma, our own causal relationships. So it's not like a blame thing. It's more like, wake up. Just wake up. Often it takes deep suffering for us to see and hear the Dharma sound and be nourished by this kind heart, wondrous as great clouds, pouring down the Dharma rain of sweet dew, quenching all flames of troubling passion. But once we hear the thunder, once we feel the rain, once we bask in the moon's radiance, all of those things are apparent to us. We still have to practice. Practice is something like Zazen, we just keep doing. On and on, day by day, practicing. Dogen says, practice realization. Shuso Ito, one word, practice realization. That is how we do not defile practice, because this practice that we do, making this effort, is realization itself. Where does it come from? Why would you practice? Because you are the moon's radiance, because you are the Dharma rain, because you and all beings, together, we are this radiant light. And that resides in our bodies and in everything outside of ourselves, and that is like a perpetual motion machine of practice. So we don't take it for granted. We must practice the Bodhisattva vow of doing our best to engage in beneficial action as often as we can, as often as we can see it, as often as we can hear that thunder of compassion and feel that rain of the Dharma. So because this is true, it means that each moment is another opportunity to reflect the moon, to be nourished by the moon, to be nourished by reality itself, to nourish others with the sweet dew of the Dharma. So we should study this rain and swallow the sweet dew by making an effort to practice the Dharma, investigate the Dharma, and transform our mistakes by remembering our deepest desire to benefit all beings. You know, we can just stand in the rain and get wet. I would say this is like listening to the Dharma, but never actually practicing the teachings. We can think of it as being unaware of the gift of this life, or the effort of each and everything that sustains us, to sustain the world. We still benefit from the rain, but we don't understand the rain, and we don't practice the art of raining ourselves. The other possibility is that we can actually try to catch the rain, drink this sweet dew, drink down this Dharma. And in this way we are nourished. We actually learn to enact and make the rain ourselves. We become like the great clouds of the Dharma rain. You know, trying to swallow the rain, standing outside with our mouths open, trying to swallow the rain, catching the rain, can require some effort. It's kind of like engaging in formal practice, or like responding in the best way to a situation, even though we know we don't want to do that. We know what the right thing is to do, but we don't want to do it because of our karmic resistance. Every time we do that, we are nourished by this Dharma rain. Every time we do that, we reflect the moon's radiance. So I would say, let's do more than just be wedded by the Dharma. Let's become the Dharma. Let's become the dewdrop. Let's become the Dharma rain of sweet dew. Thank you.